All right, hello everyone and welcome to the July SEVA meeting. I think this is our nicest temperature meeting we've had so far. So we usually start off the meeting with, if there's anybody here new for the first time, we'd ask you to introduce yourself and tell us how you heard of SEVA and if you drive an EV, or if you don't, if you're interested in driving one. But yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Angela Higg, John Woodland's wife, and we started driving EV, and recently got training with keeping up with my travel, and found that used VW fabulous ID4.
Ah, an ID4. Cool.
Really grateful to you and others for continuing to see how important it is to have a team.
Cool. Yes, sir.
I'm Chris Parker with Rivet, and I just moved back to Seattle. Black EV over here from Arizona. Awesome. So nice to meet you all, and look forward to chatting with you.
I was talking with Chris because he was surprised. Back here in Washington, where our government's supposed to be so pro-electric vehicles, we've never been able to get special plates to use the carpool lanes, even though there's like 13 or 14 other states that have been doing that for years. Arizona is one of them, and so you can see he's got the nice cloud plates, and they let you use the carpool lane down there. Many years ago, me and Jeff Finn and other SEVA members talked with our representatives who were pretty helpful in Olympia with different things, and really pushed that and did presentations showing all the other states that had it. But they told us, well, that would just be too much congestion in the carpool lane. Well, a few years later, then they added the hot lanes on 405, and so now anybody can just pay for it, so it's kind of, come on. But anyway, a perk of Arizona and California and some of the other states that do that, and it is a pity that Washington doesn't. If you ever get the ear of a legislator or something, you should tell them, hey, what's the deal? Lots of other states do this, we should do it too. As far as reports from what's happened from last meeting until now, we had a lot of big events, and as far as other EV news, Grace Reamer isn't here right now. She wished us all well, and she went through a little surgery, and she's recuperating from that, and so we wish her a speedy recovery and look forward to seeing her soon. She did also want to make sure that we let everybody know that since the big bloated bill passed, the tax credits will be going away. Luckily, it didn't happen immediately, but it is not going to go through the end of the year. So if you're looking to get either a used or a new EV, you want to do it well before September 30th, because September 30th is the last day. So until September 30th, if you buy a brand new electric vehicle and you qualify, you get $7,500 back, and assuming that the vehicle qualifies as well. And you have to buy that from a dealer or from a Tesla. Then for a used EV, you have to buy it from a dealer, or if you get it from a private party, there's an escrow service a lot of people use called Key Savvy, and you can even offer the private party seller, if they're willing to do it, if you pay the escrow fees, it's only a few $100s, but then Key Savvy essentially qualifies as a dealer, and so you can get the $4,000 used EV tax credit by going through that escrow service, even if it's a otherwise private party sale. Otherwise, if you go to a dealer, it's easy. Again, if you qualify, you'll get $4,000 off. But both of those big incentives end September 30th, so yes, sir.
Probably because of the panic. So I'm in the market for a used EV, and I've seen the prices jump by $2,000 to $3,000 in the last few days. All of the decent price ones have gone. So something to look out for.
It does make sense that there might be a little bit of a run on the market. So
Another thing was that because we left out getting our EV on June 30th, and they said they weren't sure about what would happen in July, but she was telling us that it might be July 31st because of what's going on in the government.
yes.
Just to pay attention so that you don't wait till the end of September if you can.
Well, and also though, I got some similar information from a different dealer too, who said it might be at the end of this month. So I think that the dealers may either purposely to try and make the sale are pretending it's sooner or something, or maybe they actually don't understand. Anyway, the true deadline as it was stated in the bill is September 30th. However, you have to take delivery of the vehicle before that day, and so if you ordered a brand new one and you order it just to your specs and everything, you'd better darn well make sure when it's going to actually arrive, and so you should get on that really soon. Anyway, that's important stuff to know. And on that note, Vice President Rob sent out an email to the email list for an invitation that we got from General Motors, and it was, I saw one other, there's two of you there, a few of us went to that. It was really impressive. General Motors put a thing on at the Puget, sorry, I'm standing in front of the projector. They put a thing on at the Seattle Center, and they brought every model of electric vehicle that General Motors sells, so all the different divisions had all of their EVs there. And the amount of money that they spent on this marketing and the gourmet food that we had, I mean, it was free food, definitely worth going to. They spent a lot of money on it, and they rented out the Mopop, which used to be the Experience Music Project, and had big stuff displayed on their screen. And they had this new Cadillac EV, now the name escapes me on it, but it is like brand new. The representative said that they had just delivered the first customer one the day before, so it's like super new. Everybody thought it was really cool that I talked to. I think it looks pretty neat from the front and it has a very, very long hood, but the back is really weird and ugly in my opinion. And overall, it was really techy and gaudy. The whole dashboard, well, I think there'll be some other pictures up later, the whole dashboard was screens across the entire front, like the most screen of any EV I've ever seen. And the doors automatically open and close like Tesla Model X, only even the back doors do and stuff, which the Model X's have had issues with that. It is kind of cool when it's working and you don't even have to touch your door, it automatically closes. But anyway, this is just really fancy. Yes, Mark?
So a $300,000 car, you can order all sorts of options like custom wood grain in it, different colors, and,
Wow.
and all that. But they also have one model bigger than that's the Escalade.
Yes, and that, I'll show some pictures of that too. That was impressive. They had a Silverado EV, which is, in my opinion, especially if you buy a used one, they're depreciating like nobody's business. So I was actually talking with you at the event because I'd seen them for about $50,000, including like Hertz or Enterprise was blowing out a bunch of them. I saw one for sale from them for $50,000 with only 800 something miles on it, and just remarkable. They have depreciated so quickly. But other than a particular model of Lucid, there is no other electric vehicle with as much range as if you get the biggest battery pack, which is 212 kilowatt hours in one of these Silverado EVs. So you can get 470 to 490 mile EPA rated range. It's pretty remarkable. And anyway, while we were talking about it, I looked and there was one at a dealer in Bremerton, a 2024 with like 11,000 miles on it for 42,000. So just amazing. Anyway, they had one at the event, and if you get the higher trim model instead of the work truck, the range goes down slightly, but it's still over 400 miles. But the cool thing compared to any of the other electric trucks on the market is the back has a tailgate that opens inward, so you can put really long things in there, or you could camp in there, or put a kayak in or something. It opens into the cabin, and that's pretty unique among the electric trucks. They had it there powering an ice cream cooler, and you could get ice cream for free that was being cooled by the Silverado EV. Then this is the electric Cadillac Escalade. So nobody until this has made such a large EV. It's essentially a suburban size. They have a smaller one as well, but this new one, the Escalade IQ, is monstrous. So it is the size of an actual Suburban, but Chevy doesn't make an electric Suburban, or GMC doesn't make one. Only Cadillac makes this, and it's their big Escalade IQ. It does have 460-mile range, and then 100 miles of charging in 10 minutes with the DC fast charging, because it also uses that 800-volt pack architecture, so it can take advantage of the 350 kilowatt fast charging. It was pretty fancy and big inside. Also, its dash was almost all screens all over. Then the other thing which I learned about, and I was happy to learn about, and in fact, Phil, you asked on the SEVA list, and if the Equinox EV is a good deal, and by golly, I think it is. It's one of the best deals out there for dollar per range amount of miles that you get. So they have this blue one, it's an Equinox EV over here. They said 315 mile plus range. The EPA rating I saw is 319 miles. And Paul Calley, one of our members, has had one for a while now and had it at the Greenwood Car Show. And he says with his efficient driving, since he's gone from lower range EVs like many of us in the past and learned to drive efficiently, he says he always sees 330 miles in the summer easy. So really impressive range, and it legitimately starts at $34,995. And then it does qualify until September 30th for that $7,500 tax credit, so that knocks it down to under $30,000. And then if you have a Costco business or a Costco executive membership, you can get $1,000 to like $1,200 more off. And until the end of this month, Chevy is offering $2,000 customer appreciate, I forget what they call it, but as an extra incentive. So if you get the base model, I was pricing it out, you could pick one up for just under $25,000, and it's a brand new warranted car with basically 320 mile range. There's no other deal like that out there. Yes?
Paul's email today said he was, with the software update, he was getting 368.
Interesting, okay. So, possibly even better. Yes, Bill?
So, something for people to think about. When the incentives go away, will the car manufacturers provide really good lease terms to keep moving product?
Yeah, that's a good question. And or will they change their prices once the incentives go away? I don't know. I guess it will depend on what the market says. One other option also that GM is doing right now, I think both also with the show that they spent so much money on, they are struggling to sell cars. And so they're offering 0% financing for 5 years. So it's like, why wouldn't you finance? I mean, and if you keep track of your commute and how much you spend in gas, with the gas prices being what they are lately, it's conceivable that you could get an EV essentially for free for the next 5 years with a payment if it's about what you pay in gas every month. Because you could pick up an Equinox EV for like $400 a month or so with the 0% financing for 5 years. So anyway, I was really impressed with all of the different vehicles that GM had there, and in particular, this is the Escalade dash. You can see what I mean, and there's another screen down there. It's very techy. And this is inside it as well. One thing that this particular model had was it had the executive seat package in the middle. So it had captain's chairs in the middle row, but they said that you can get a version with a bench seat in the middle that folds down. Then this is the front. It's pretty impressive. It's a very large front. I was impressed with that. And yeah, 460 mile range for a basically electric Suburban. This is the smaller version. And then this is that unique one from the side.
Celestique,
I think, yeah, the Celestique.
What's the range?
I don't remember what the range is on it. It's probably pretty impressive. Oh yeah, here's inside of it. You have the screens everywhere. And the one thing I thought was silly is I opened the hood in the front, because the hood was so long. It's one of the longest hoods of an EV, so I thought, ooh, I wonder what the front is like. It was actually very, very small. And then I'm guessing, since it's so new, they didn't have all the trim pieces covering everything, so it looked a little goofy under the hood. Yes?
Yeah, will there be a chance to talk about other cars? Because I have another one I want to tell people about.
I'll let you, when I finish up here, you can tell people about it then. This was the Hummer EV, and I was like, okay, what's all this stuff up in the front? That's the roof panels. So the Hummer EV is a convertible, and then if you take off all the roof panels, they technically fit, but they take up the whole front. So that was kind of interesting to see. Here's that Equinox EV from the side. And if you're interested in the Equinox EV too, you got to be careful. There's a bunch of different trim levels, and the dealer may try and upsell you, or, well, we've got this one. But if you really want the one that starts at $34,000, it's the LT, and that's the base model one. In my opinion, though, it's probably worth springing. It's a $2,000 option package. Gives you adaptive cruise control, heated seats, which in an EV is really important in the winter because the amount of energy that heated seats use versus heating the whole cabin. It's like, imagine if you tried to boil a pot of water by holding it a foot above the burner, how less effective that would be than if it's just on the burner. You're trying to heat the occupants of a vehicle, and if you heat the seats and their butt versus having to heat all the air to make them warm, the amount of difference in watts is many orders of magnitude. So I realized that years ago and was like, oh man, I don't think I would buy an EV without seat heaters unless I lived in Arizona or something. But yeah, so I was pretty impressed with that. Did you want to share something else about the vehicles there?
So this wasn't there, but we've been looking for a high-range vehicle that we can take cross-country. We're not going to end up getting it, but if you haven't seen the new Hyundai Ioniq 9, they now have them in the dealerships, and they're really cool looking. And the prices are a little high still, but you know, maybe after everything shakes out, those will come down. But it was one of our favorites, and so I wanted to mention it.
Okay.
We haven't really seen one in this group yet.
Yeah, so that's the Ioniq 9 as opposed to the EV 9?
Yep. It's
Okay,
a lot
cool.
nicer.
A new one. All right, cool. I haven't looked at it either. I'll have to check that out. Neat. And as far as other news, and on that note then, not to be outdone, Ford just sent me this invite, and I'll send it out to the SEVA list as well. But this coming Saturday at Marymore Park, before the Electrify Expo, which also will be this weekend, Ford is having an event, and it is free to the public to attend, and they'll give you breakfast, and then they're going to have their Ford EVs there. And so it's Saturday, July 12th, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., and it's at Marymore Park at, what does that say there? 6046 West Lake Sammamish Parkway Northeast in Redmond, Washington. If you do register with the link, you can get a free ticket, it looks like, for the Electrify Expo, which is pretty cool. And a few years ago, Ford did that as well, and you could then get free wristbands to attend the Electrify Expo, which if you've never attended, is really worthwhile. There's a lot of electric vehicles from most all of the auto manufacturers, as well as electric bicycles, and also a bunch of conversions in the car show. It's really worthwhile going to, and that will be this coming weekend at Marymore Park in Redmond. But yeah, so the Ford Cars and Coffee, July 12th. Then, how many of you were at Greenwood Car Show? We had a good amount of people there. And it's one of our biggest car shows, probably the biggest car show of the year. A big thanks to our treasurer, Charlie Sy, who helped put it on this year. It always takes a lot of work to coordinate with the Greenwood folks, to get people moved and show up really early in the morning and everything. And so Charlie put a lot of work in behind the scenes that you don't see, and I really appreciate that. And we had what, about 18 cars?
Yeah, 18 from SEVA and actually 2 others that
That's
signed
right.
up independently. So
Yes.
we had 20 cars in our section that were all electric.
That's right. We had a Polestar, and what was the other independent one?
A Bolt. No, it was a Leaf, a Nissan Leaf.
Oh yeah, an old Nissan Leaf,
Yeah.
which is cool. Yeah, and a Polestar showed up as well. But we drove there really early, and here's our little procession of electric vehicles coming. We had a beautiful converted Porsche that was a really nice conversion. A lot of really nice conversions there. This is the 54 GMC that I converted, and we had the SEVA banner hanging on the back of that, so it wound up working well for a banner display. Chevy Bolt, a extended range plug-in hybrid custom Jeep, and John Lustmeyer brought his Cybertruck and towed his old Corbin Sparrow electric, which is the 3-wheel pink vehicle you see on the back. Thousands of people every year at Greenwood Car Show, so it's a great opportunity to show off our electric vehicles. EV Works from Bainbridge Island had their converted Volkswagen bus that they brought to last month's meeting, and also a beautiful Jaguar XKE conversion. We had Steve Marks with his, I forget what year, maybe 2000 Ford Ranger EV. Still original Ford Ranger EV, now with a lithium pack. But I remember when he bought that, probably back in 2006, and he's still driving it. The Ranger EVs have wound up being more reliable. All the electronics, he said, still work. The only thing he fixed was adding new lithium batteries. Those old electronics still work. They've wound up being more reliable than the old electric S10s that Chevy made. Then there was a guy with a Lotus conversion. So it was pretty unique.
I don't know if you heard, but this may be the first year that this happened, but Scott Peterson, who brought this Lotus, got awarded Best in Class for the EV category. So yeah, I didn't know there was such a thing, but he was gobsmacked. He didn't know about it either, and he was shocked that he got the award.
Nice, I didn't hear that
Yeah.
either. Neat. Oh, that's great. Huh. Yeah, it was a very clean and unique vehicle. I mean, you don't see very many of those old Lotuses at all. So there's that nice XKE, a few more pictures of it as well. Also, huge thanks to both Ryan and Micah. Yeah, both of you. I mean, for helping get John Wayland up here with 2 of his vehicles. We really appreciate that. And so John sent out a good email to the list and we're calling Ryan Ironman because 800 miles in a day. So basically, he lives up here in Federal Way, drove all the way down to Portland with his Cybertruck and a trailer to pick up the white Zombie electric drag racing Datsun, then drove it all the way back up here for the Greenwood Car Show, getting barely any sleep, and then drove it all the way back down to Portland to drop it off at John's, and then drove all the way back home. So that's a testament to where we are at this day and age too, with electric vehicles, that you could, with an electric pickup truck, tow a vehicle like 800 miles in a day using the supercharger, of course. But that's a lot of hours on the road, and we really appreciate it. And
at every fast charging stop, we were charging his Insight at 5 kilowatts.
yeah, that's a unique and cool thing that the Cybertruck is able to do, is it can be charging from the supercharger and simultaneously its bed outlet is able to be active. And so then they were charging a different Honda Insight that John and Micah drove up. So Micah, who got barely any sleep as well, helped, went down early with Ryan and then helped keep John awake and drive up in the Insight. Micah's quite the Insight owner and expert, and so that was pretty cool. And then John's Insight, we call the EV2, he actually bought EV1 wheels for it and put them on even, and he got an EV1 motor, and so it is powered by an EV1 motor, and it is extremely efficient. I believe he said 155 watt hours per mile.
185, I think.
Okay, and so sub 200 at freeway speeds.
Sorry, 158. There we go.
Yeah, 158. So really good efficiency at freeway speeds driving up here with a very old pack, well over 10 years old pack of Kokum lithium batteries, but a very clean and beautiful conversion. Both of them were real crowd pleasers, and big thanks to you guys for helping John get them up here for the show.
You gave one of those.
Yes. Then we had Tim Economou's Maxwell converted van. If you haven't heard of these, they're pretty neat. And Maxwell's in California, and they do conversions of Dodge ProMasters, which is kind of like a Dodge Sprinter van. And so a lot of fleets use them, but you can also make a camper version if you like, which is what Tim has done. And it's essentially Maxwell makes a whole kit for it that takes a Tesla Model 3 drivetrain and puts it into one of these Sprinters. So you get the reliability and future parts availability of one of the most mass-produced electric vehicles, the Tesla Model 3, in a big van like this. And they do it for a pretty reasonable price as well. So that's pretty cool.
And it's for sale.
Oh, yes, right. And Tim is selling it, though, to get a bigger one. Then here's some pics of that beautiful XKE that our member Scott Vandevoort converted. And he showed it the last month when they did a presentation, their Tesla NACS port, but this is an up-close version. So he's actually using some of the Tesla charge port parts, and then they make that into the inlet. And Scott figured out all the smarts to actually make the lights change like it would in the Tesla, and the port latches to hold your charge cable in there so nobody can unplug you if you don't want it and stuff. So really, really nice job. And then we had Casey Minot. Old school. Here's some of the old EV pioneers from the days of yesteryear. So John Wayland, who was somebody that inspired me back in 2004 when I was getting into EVs, and he had converted the white zombie electric Datsun that was racing and beating Dodge Vipers and stuff. And then Steve Lowe, who started SIVA and ran that since 1979 or 1980 for many years. And then Casey Minot was an instructor at a high school up in the Delta Secondary School in British Columbia. And so he came down from Canada. He made an early electric drag racing pickup truck. And then me, of course. And so we're some of the old Nedra electric drag racing guys who've been doing this for a long time, and it was cool to have all of us together at the show. The other cool thing then is, so the 1954 GMC is by far the heaviest vehicle I've ever converted, the most unaerodynamic, the most frontal area, and it gets really bad watt hours per mile. So even though it has a big 85 kilowatt hour Tesla pack, and because it was so big, I was able to just mount the entire Tesla pack underneath it. So if it ever needs to be replaced, I can just get another Tesla pack and drop the one out and pop the other one in. I used all the original connections and everything. But anyway, we drove that down from Charlie's house where we stayed up late and washed it. And then I was driving it out to Maple Valley after the show, and so I wanted it to be full. So Ron drove my Ford Lightning down, and then we demonstrated at the show charging it up, and we charged it up in just a few hours completely off of the Ford Lightning, and then the Ford Lightning still had enough range to go back here. Maybe one of your electric Gias, Jay. And Jay was gone, as you'll see later, so we didn't make it this year, but yeah, always a great show. And then now we will move on to one of our featured presenters, which is Chris Barker from Rivet, which is a pretty exciting electric motorcycle company. And Chris, you can come up and tell everyone about it.
Sure. Thank you.
Yep. Do you want me to push the
Sure,
button?
if you don't mind.
Okay.
That's perfect. Either way.
Hi, so thanks for having me. This is the first parking garage presentation I think I've ever given. I love it. This is like very much my element. So I'm Chris Parker. I'm with Rivet. So we are an electric motorcycle company, if you haven't heard of us, based in California. A company launched about 3 years ago in Southern California. So we're down in the kind of Burbank, Hawaiian Gardens area, but we design, build, and manufacture our electric motorcycles in California, but we also are building them in, just announced in India, as well as in Turkey. So we'll be manufacturing and producing in 3 continents across the world. And this motorcycle is pretty interesting because the team that came together to build this are all former aerospace engineers. So the idea behind this was, how do we kind of revolutionize the way motorcycles are designed and how electrification comes together on this platform. So if you go to the next slide, our whole focus is around how do we provide affordable mobility to the masses in a way, in a platform that's highly scalable, it's very flexibly designed, and it's very affordable. And so this motorcycle you saw, in fact, you go to the next slide, this little bit of the backdrop on motorcycles. Does anybody have a motorcycle here?
Can you put that closer to
Is that better? Okay, sorry. Does anybody have a motorcycle? Any motorcycle riders? One. Okay. Anybody drive an electric motorcycle? No. Okay. So in traditional motorcycle manufacturing, the highest cost goes into the spot welding and the engine design, because oftentimes the engine is the center point and they build outward the rest of the bike. And so your cost is pretty expensive in the frame, the engine, and the other parts that come onto that. And that makes the manufacturing process also pretty time consuming. What we've done is taken a completely different modular approach to design and building a motorcycle. So there's no spot welding. There's not a traditional gas-powered motor. It's an electric motor. And we're able to design the bike in 4 subcomponent parts. So a normal motorcycle could be several weeks to a month to build from inception to completion. With our design, we can assemble a motorcycle in 3 to 5 hours with professional installers. And because the design is in a modular approach, we use aerospace-grade fasteners, aluminum framing, so it's very flexible, very durable for different road driving conditions. And it allows us to adapt and modify the motorcycles to different body designs on the fly. So if you go to the next slide, this is the subcomponent systems for the bike. So you have the front forks, you have the top frame, the electric motor, and then what's really different and unique is that the battery detaches from the bike. So if you think about motorcycle, usually it's a fixed fuel tank, but in our case we can actually unclip the battery from the bike. It has wheels on it like a suitcase and a pull-up handle, and you can wheel the battery into your house, your office, wherever you are, and plug it into a regular 110 outlet and charge up the battery. As a result of that design, it's very weight balanced. So the bike weighs roughly 300 pounds. To put that in comparison, a standard motorcycle is somewhere between 600 to 800 pounds. And so as a result, you get a lot more ease of riding because it's very easy, it's very light. And most of our riders, over 53% of our motorcycle riders, are brand new motorcycles. So they like the fact that there's no shifting required. It's regenerative braking, so it's just throttle control and brake. And if you go to the next slide, this is a little bit what the battery looks like. So it has this little pull-up handle. And so it was also nice in places like Arizona, where I used to live, where it's incredibly hot, and we know that the drawdown on the battery system, you take the battery into your climate-controlled setting, and you don't have to worry about power degradation with extreme heat or extreme cold weather, which is a big plus in the design. So this is the rivet here, and so as I was mentioning, this battery component just clips down and comes off the bike, and then you just wheel the battery as you need to. And of course, taking the battery is also a security benefit because nobody can really want to steal the bike because it's not going to go anywhere without a battery. It's got a push-button start, and the seat has an actuator, so you can raise and lower the seat while you're riding, depending upon your height. For most motorcyclists, they want to have their feet kind of firmly planted on the ground. So it's adaptable to different heights of riders. And it has over-the-air software updates, much like a Tesla. So we can send updates to the software system, adjust the braking, adjust the suspension, change different elements of the bike to make it continually adaptable to the riders' wants and needs. Go to the next slide. So a little bit about the company. Launched again in California back in 2021 and started doing early prototype designs of the different motorcycles. So we actually have, I'll go into detail in a second, 4 different models of motorcycle. But the big launch activity was in November of 2023. We applied for a California START grant and received $20 million in funding, which really kicked off the whole operation. That allowed us to design 3 to 4 motorcycle models and ramp up sales throughout the United States and parts of Asia as well. And so we're now in another fundraising round to grow the footprint even bigger into Asia and Europe, as we find the 2-wheel market in Asia is huge, and same in Europe. The US is still kind of coming along when it comes to 2-wheel EVs, but we're seeing more and more pickup in that area. If you go to the next slide. So this is a little bit about the bike. It does 75, 80 miles an hour with about 75 to 80 mile range. Now the faster you go, the quicker the drawdown on the battery. But it's really well designed as an urban commuter type of vehicle platform. Great for in-city where parking is challenging. You can park it in many different locations. The motorcycle, again, gross weight just a little over 300 pounds. So that's 300 to 600 pounds lighter than a traditional motorcycle. Now, before the tariff, the prices were $6,800. Wow. Just in the last 6 to 9 weeks, we had to modify the pricing upwards to a little over $8,000, closer to 9. So, and our parts were coming from all around the world, so we had to, I'm responsible for supply chain and global market expansion, so we had to redo our supply chain on the fly. So we're now doing sub-assembly in places like the Philippines, which used to be Vietnam, India, which used to be parts of China, and Turkey, which used to be other parts of the US. So it's forced us to get really adaptive very quickly, just based on the tariff costs for importing parts from around the world. Kind of keeping us on our feet, our toes. As far as the functionality, again, super easy to ride. One of the biggest inhibitors we hear from motorcycle enthusiasts or people who want to ride is that shifting can be something, if you've never ridden a motorcycle, that might be the intimidating factor. The fact that it's just throttle control and brake makes the experience very smooth. The swappable battery, so a lot of people get one battery with the bike and then they'll get a backup battery, so they can hot swap batteries as they need to, which just gives them a lot of extra flexibility. And then we can add all sorts of, it has a reverse, that's something else. The reverse is something that's very popular, believe it or not. And then we can do remote charging. So you have an app on your phone, you can control your charging to the motorcycle, much like you would do with a Tesla or other types of EVs. One of the things that we see with it is ease of ownership. So you can get coverage warranty on the entire bike. We can upgrade the color palette. So if you go online, one of the things I didn't mention is the consumers can purchase the motorcycles from the website. We'll deliver directly to your house. You can change the look and feel of your motorcycle. So some of these panels are custom colored and designed. So if you get partway through your ownership experience and say, I want a different color scheme, we can swap that out for you and give you a whole different looking bike. You can also upgrade your batteries. So as the battery technology continues to grow in range and sophistication, you can be able to update the battery cells, battery packs for longer range. And it basically comes out to about 2 cents a mile for the cost of riding on these motorcycles, when you factor in the charging. And again, when you look at the price, the average price of another competitive motorcycle is probably in the range of $14,000 to $18,000 and up, and our price is still below $9,000. So it's a really attractive option for people who have maybe had electric bicycles and they want to graduate to the next level. It's something that's a little bit more roadworthy. You do have to have an M1 motorcycle license to ride the bikes. Just as a caveat. And this is just a little bit of the other benefits associated with the bikes. One of the things we hear a lot is just how quiet they are. People are amazed at the fact that they go through city streets and you can barely even hear them. So the riders are more attuned to their surroundings as opposed to the typical noise factor that you would get with louder gas-powered ice bikes. It's typical of that type of operation. Go to the next slide. So we're also looking at more adaptable platforms. So I talked about the modularity of the platform. So we can do a two-wheel, we have a sidecar version. We're working on a rental fleet, and then the last one is more of a scooter option, which is a lighter version, a little lower to the ground, a fraction of the price. And we find in Europe and some of the places where the scooter market is quite strong. In college universities, we were at Arizona State University about a month ago, and they're looking for a urban mobility platform for students. The scooter option is something that's quite attractive. Talking here at the University of Washington and other campuses about scooters for students. If they can't afford a car or don't want a car, it's another flexible way to go. And then the delivery sidecar version can be used in manufacturing locations. We can haul parts, like think about I used to work at Boeing. Once upon a time, we had three-wheel trikes that we were riding around the factory floor. You could do an electric motorcycle with a sidecar or a utility cart, haul all sorts of parts and equipment, and get around even faster. So that's becoming something that's quite attractive to manufacturing entities as well. Food service is a big one. So in Europe, I used to live and work in France. The number of food scooters in Paris is just, they're 5 deep on every sidewalk. And so having a rack that we can put on the back with a hot box that allows them to be able to transport food, or a cool pack if it's something that needs to be kept cool, and they can get around and park very easily. And so cities are finding they're creating motorcycle EV zones that allow you to hop in, deliver whatever your item is, and then get on your way to your next stop. And they would much prefer that than clogging the streets with big delivery trucks.
And it's nice and quiet.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the other is a recreational vehicle community. We're seeing a lot of uptick in having this as an add-on vehicle to your RV, being able to have a rack on the back. So this is the other model of motorcycle. It's called the Outset, and it's an on-road, off-road electric motorcycle that has kind of a more beefy suspension, bigger, fatter tires, and allows for trail riding. And it's got a longer, elongated seat, so you can have 1 to 2 riders on the motorcycle. It weighs 265 pounds versus the 300 plus pounds that the Anthem street bike is. So it's very popular for putting on the back of an RV and having as a way to get around campsites or areas where you don't want to have to deal with the tow vehicle in your normal camping type experience. And then again, popular city riding where you can put 2 people on and then adjust the seat height. It has rear pegs, so it's very flexible and adaptable to that kind of urban setting. And then this is where my world comes in. So because the 2-wheel market in Asia, if any of you spend a lot of time in Asia, mopeds, scooters, motorcycles is the predominant way of getting around, particularly Southeast Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, other huge parts of China. So we're seeing a huge amount of uptick and opportunity there. I was in Copenhagen last October. I don't know, maybe you've been to Copenhagen? They have more bicycles than people, literally. And so they're quite excited about the idea of electric motorcycles as the next iteration in that market. And then we're also getting a lot of interest, and I'll talk about this, the military. We provide, there's a version, if you go a little farther here, I guess that's my last one. I'll just mention it. So we have a military version of the motorcycle that the U.S. Special Forces teams are using right now for training. We can parachute them out of a C-17, land them on an island, and autonomously drive them across the island to Special Forces They really like it because it has a very small heat signature, and it's super quiet for their missions. And the feedback we've had so far has been very, very strong. So we have the military testing, and then we just delivered 3 shipping containers full of electric motorcycles to the El Salvador police. Another batch in Ohio, so local law enforcement are finding the EV bikes are far friendlier on their budgets and give them a lot more range, ability, and cost control.
Yeah, a lot less maintenance.
A lot less maintenance. Yeah. So I think that's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Please.
Stamped sheet metal frame, or do you have a tube frame?
It's a sheet metal frame.
Okay.
A bend frame that we use. It comes in 2 parts, but it's aerospace grade sheet metal that we're using, and aerospace grade fasteners.
Well, you fasten it, you don't weld it together, you fasten
No, it's all fasteners. Yeah, so and the structural strength of those we put through tremendous amount of testing, and they're holding up great. Versus in some cases, spot welds, you get a crack in the spot weld, so it's a little bit different situation.
Yeah, you need to replace it easily.
And it's a lot less expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. A typical tube frame with spot welding is going to be a lot more expensive and time consuming to do patches and fixes on than this type of arrangement. Yeah.
Lockable hard luggage.
Sorry?
Lockable hard luggage panniers. Yeah.
Panniers.
Yeah, think about, for me, as a commuter, that's like, if I can't put myself in there, it's a deal breaker.
Sure.
I want to spend that money and then have to carry it on my back.
Right.
So,
We have it's a great point. We have a rack that it was originally designed for law enforcement. It's a police rack where they can put their equipment on the back, and we're now adding it. You kind of see it's a bit of a variation. It looks more, there's an open cage version and there's a closed version for rain and weather. But you can adapt that to different dimensions and be able to put a relatively decent sized piece of luggage. If you have a big rolling bag, that might be slightly challenging.
that modular frame, you could have like a rack for the size
Yeah. Well, that's where the sidecar design is picking up pace and interest. We're looking at some adaptations where we could have a cover over it so you can put multiple things in the sidecar component. And interestingly enough, if you have a sidecar, it doesn't require a motorcycle license.
That is
It's a loophole. It's a loophole.
Dangerous to try.
I know, it's this crazy thing. We looked at the DMVs and they don't require a motorcycle license for the sidecar. But you do for 2 wheels.
Can
So
you?
back to the pannier idea. One of the nice things about the panniers is that if you crash, they protect your legs from getting, you see motorcyclists get their legs amputated and stuff. And those panniers are really great for that. Or if you're sideswiped, the pannier will take
Absorb the
much of the impact.
Yeah.
But I have one other question, sort of safety related. Have you tested them for? Are they shielded? Is the electronics shielded so that there's not a lot of electromagnetic radiation?
Yes, there's great question. There's a shroud that goes over the battery area, and we've done all sorts of puncture testing. So if there was any kind of a object in the road that came up, it's reinforced metal at the bottom and on the sides of the shroud, so that it prevents it from any of the cell walls getting punctured and causing an unintended fire. And then, if anybody has any issues with the battery, we have a detection system built in to diagnostics of the bike, and we can replace a battery if we see any kind of cell issue. We'll automatically replace that for the riders.
I was thinking more about electromagnetic radiation, like electric fields, because I was one of the first electric bike businesses in Seattle. The fields are just huge around the electric bike motors and batteries. And I was wondering if you sort of tested that out.
We have done some of that as well, and our chief engineer, in fact, is doing some field testing on that right now for the military version, for some of the areas that we're operating the bikes in. I can come back to you with some follow-up information on that.
You're really interested.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. No, no problem.
I might have missed it, but did you say, like with a standard battery, what the range is?
Yes, so for the Anthem street bike, the one here on the left, you're looking at fully charged is about 80 to 100 miles. And generally, to get best efficiency, if you drive between 35 to 55 miles per hour, you're going to get the most range. If you start popping up above 60, you're going to draw down the battery, obviously, much quicker. So, and we're working on a new battery that hopefully will get us closer to 175 to 200 mile range.
Wow.
The trick is, the challenge with that is the weight. So the more range, as we all know, the heavier the battery. And so one of the attractive parts of the bike is it's very light, but people want extended range. So we're trying to kind of placate those two paradigms of give them more range, but don't add 30, 40 gross weight pounds to the motorcycle because it changes the whole weight balancing of the bike in doing so.
Does the battery pack have a way that it lowers it so you don't have to grab it? And how much does the battery pack weigh?
Yeah, this is it's basically on a hinge system. So you see these two wheels, it lowers down to the ground. There's a little latch you just clip, and it just easily sits down on the ground. The battery itself off of the bike is probably about 38 pounds. Roughly.
Oh, wow.
I can pick it up.
You could actually have it as a backpack. You could bring another battery for at 38 pounds.
You could. It
I
would
mean,
be heavy,
be heavy, right?
But yeah, depending on your stature and how you feel.
The military could. They're rocking 80 pounds.
Oh, that's the other thing I didn't mention. Thank you for that. The military, so what we do for them is we have a full roll-up array, solar array, that goes into a kit, a backpack kit. So when they're out in the field, they just unfurl the array, plug it into the battery, and they can charge the bike in the middle of nowhere, which is pretty cool. So we have a whole Special Forces kit pack that's designed for that use case, which I think is going to work its way into a camping version at some point. We'll see.
Is it, you mentioned the thing with the sidecar, and it doesn't require a license, a motorcycle
Correct.
license.
Yeah.
What license does it require?
None. It's this crazy loophole with departments of motor vehicles. If you have a three-wheeled vehicle, you don't need a motorcycle
You don't need
license.
a license plate on it.
Oh no, you need a license plate, but you don't need a motorcycle license. So yeah, so if you have this two-wheel bike, you have to get an M1 motorcycle license in any of the 50 states.
How old do you have to be to get an M1?
16. Yeah. And we offer the motorcycle training course to get the bike. We'll put you through, it's a 2.5-day course to get your M1 license.
I know I see these kids riding these
Surruns.
electric bikes
Yes,
around,
Surruns.
and they don't look like they're 16 to me.
Yeah.
They're legal.
Those are illegal because they're riding in places they're not supposed to. Yeah. There's a lot of people who aren't doing it the way it's supposed to. So.
My understanding in Washington State is you do need the M1 and you need a special endorsement to your M1 in this state.
For 2 or 3 wheels?
3.
Oh, for 3. Yeah, so far, what we have heard, most of the states where we're operating in just about every one, they told us 3-wheel doesn't require a license, motorcycle license. I think that could change, but for right now, it's this interesting little gap.
How many kilowatt hours is the battery?
So if you have it fully charged, depending on how fast you're going, you can get 4 to 6 hours, roughly speaking. If it's completely to charge it up, so if the battery is completely depleted, you're looking at probably 3 to 4 hours to charge the battery.
How many kilowatts is the battery? Kilowatt hours?
Oh, the energy, yeah. I should have memorized and I don't have it right with me, but I'll get that back to you. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And that, speaking of the Asian markets, that segues into our next short presentation from Jay, who just took a trip to Asia and has a short little EV report for us.
Thank you all. Yes, I was very sorry to miss Greenwood, but had a long-standing trip scheduled to Hong Kong and Thailand, June 15th through 30th. And it was very gratifying to see the taxi fleet in Hong Kong is rapidly flipping over to EVs. From the last 30 years, it's been Toyota Crowns with half the trunk space taken up by a propane tank. And these are sedans, not wagons, so you see all these leaving the airport with their trunks held down by bungee cords. And there's a number of models fighting for that niche right now. Nothing's emerged dominant. I rode in a BYD E6, which is a large hatchback, and the floor of the trunk is as low as the bottom of the rear axle. It's just huge. We put 4 big suitcases back there, and then a big spacious car that was really quick and very much up to first world standards. Don't be fooled when they say these Chinese domestic vehicles are reincarnated Yugos or Trabants. These are top-notch vehicles. And then also a side trip to Bangkok, where light motorcycles and scooters are all over the place. As on a big 8-lane boulevard, we stop at a red light and all the motorbikes gradually filter to the front, and as soon as the light changes, it's a blue smoke screen because they all just put the pedal to the metal and took off. I was, of course, trying to spot EVs all through the trip, and I only saw one electric motorbike in Bangkok out of thousands that went past us. Anybody familiar with the 3-wheel tuk-tuk, the traditional domestic tourist mobile in Bangkok? They are now producing electric ones, and I seem to spot a trend that the old gas tuk-tuks had guys with chains around their necks and watermelon shooter mufflers and lots of chrome and extra doodads hanging. And the electric tuk-tuks more often had female drivers and were less garishly decorated.
That's your observation.
Yes, no comment. In Hong Kong, the Chinese market will follow the U.S. market, and these are very popular, made by SAIC. It's the MIFA 9, and it reminded me of a Tahoe in that it's ridiculously large on the inside, but you can barely fit a briefcase behind the third row. And the frunk was big enough for a 12-pack. It was just tiny, tiny, tiny. But big captain's chairs in the second row with a pull-up airline-style dining/study tray. Pretty ridiculous, but the privately owned one, we owned model that we rode around in was very new but did not have functional air conditioning. There's an electric tuk-tuk taken from a hotel window, sorry for the bad angle. This was an advertisement on the back of a bus advertising 12-volt lithium batteries for your EV. You need to see just general advertising specifically for EVs. Inside of the Maxus EV, just big, luxurious thing. Monster sky moonroof. Guidance on the side of a parking garage saying EV chargers are on level 1F. A private garage charging station. A little more, I don't know why it's a little more complicated than our level 2s. It was the British style bring your own cord arrangement in public using a Many-Keys connector, yes. And then a retail store in Hong Kong selling charging adapters of all shapes and sizes. And Sexy EV will provide to anybody, but I already had one. This time last year I got my prototype, and if anybody watches Dala the Magnificent on YouTube, he got one at the same time, and he persevered with the testing. I decided to wait it out and let them solve their problems, so I did a warranty exchange in person at the frontier. I literally rode a train to the border, and the guy was on the other side of the wire fence, and we exchanged for the warranty replacement. So this is, CCS charging station to Chattanooga vehicle. And it hasn't worked in my first 3 tests. But It has a USB port and special cables to accept software updates that I would email back and forth. And the Tesla adapter from CCS. But it won't work this way. It's a female-to-female connection and those don't produce anything. So I need a man in the middle. Otherwise, things are moving in the adaptation world. That was very exciting. And other interesting things, didn't see any electric buses in Hong Kong, still dominated by diesels, double-decker diesels, but they had solar panels on the roof to help with their auxiliary loads. That was very interesting, and saw an electric bus in Thailand. And of course, bullet trains transport public works projects just move at such a crazy pace. You know, I went past a highway construction site at 4:30 on a Saturday, and hundreds of vests in motion, not a stationary piece of equipment in sight, and they were just gearing up for the next shift. Nothing like around here. They get things done in a hurry. That is about it.
Thank you.
Oh, did that come off of this? A dead cat? Ryan? He didn't hit the ground. I caught it just before that, but it looks like something fell off. Just the microphone. So in other news, thank you to some of the SEVA members. Our SEVA secretary came down, as well as Brian Hughes and myself and my cousin Hans, who hasn't come to a meeting in a long time, but drives a Nissan Leaf still. And we went over to Yakima, Washington. I sent this out and mentioned it at last month's meeting, and our next presenter will be telling a lot more about it. But we went over to Yakima, Washington, where they still have the historically accurate and intact. It's survived for well over 100 years since its inception in 1907, and is still an interurban and the last authentic one in the country. But it's at risk because the city is in a budget deficit, and they're looking at paving 6th Avenue, which is the main street that the trolleys run along, and it would be a lot cheaper to pave it without including the tracks again. So after well over a century, they might do away with it, and so we really need help to protect these old classic electric vehicles. And they were supposed to vote on it on June 17th. The city council was going to vote on which option, and some of the options include keeping the tracks and some of them include paving over. And so we had a big outpouring of support from the community, packed the city council chambers and on out into the foyer with folks with signs, keep the YVT on 6th Avenue and everything. And I don't know if it was that or what, but and the news was there too, filming and stuff. The city council declined to make a decision. And so it's, I don't know if that's good or bad news, but at least it bought the trolleys a little more time. But yeah, there was just a lot of people there, and big thanks to Eric and everybody that came along, because it really, I think, did make an impact.
Is it going to be back on the agenda?
So yes, it'll be on the agenda in August 5th, I believe, and that August 4th. Okay, and that brings us to our next featured presenter, someone near and dear to my heart, my father, Ken Johnson, who even since way before I was born has been passionate about these trolleys in Yakima. My mother grew up in spent the later part of her life, their family lived in Yakima, and my grandparents were over there. And so when my parents met at the UW, in the summer, Dad would go over to visit Mom in Yakima and see these historic trolleys that have survived all these years. And now he has a presentation to tell you more about it.
right?
I love Microsoft. Let's see.
There we go.
Oh.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, I've been trying to save this railroad for 52 years. That sounds really funny, doesn't it? Don't you finally save it? But in 2025, it is still very much on the brink of becoming just history. It is, as Stephen mentioned, the last interurban railroad in America, the last intact one. There's a couple remnants of ones in the east. But in between 1900 and 1930, the transportation picture in America was interurban railroads, and they even called it the interurban era because they started out in 1900 in the horse and buggy days, and then by 1930 they were automobiles had taken over. But in that space, the interurban railroads provided most of the transportation between towns and cities and rural areas, farms and places like that. This is going to be interesting.
One of the reasons we love electrics.
So this is the YVT Railroad, Yakima Valley Transportation Company, started in 1907 in Yakima. This is Yakima Avenue, the main drag through town, and the track when they were laying it in 1907. The building in the center there is still there today. This is looking down Yakima Avenue as the track was being laid, and then building again just on the left. By 1908, the track was complete on Yakima Avenue, and streetcars were running. And this was quite an accomplishment for a dusty little town on the edge of the Washington Desert to actually have an electric street railway. And that's exactly how it started out, as just a street railway for the city of Yakima. But the promoters of this railroad were only able to build about 3 miles of track when they ran out of money. And their franchise required them to have 10 miles of track, so they had to do something. So they talked to the Union Pacific Railroad, and the Union Pacific Railroad bought the railroad from them and turned it into an interurban. And this is the kind of streetcars that interurban railroads ran. And Union Pacific wasn't particularly interested in passenger service, but they saw the Yakima Valley as a very highly agricultural productive area that would feed agricultural products to their main line, which came to Yakima. And so this railroad, by running interurban lines out to the little towns west and north of Yakima, became a true classic interurban. And you can see the difference in interurban cars and city streetcars. The one on the left is a city streetcar, and the other two are interurban cars. This was in their first car barn. It was built in 1910. And this was their very first locomotive that they bought. Now the railroad, as I mentioned, was interested in freight, not just passenger, but mainly freight. And so they bought this locomotive in 1910 to start hauling freight in refrigerator cars. Well, the locomotive still exists today, and we actually still use it. So it's been running for 115 years on the same railroad. And it has only missed 1 year in operation, and that was the COVID year of 2020. We were forced to shut down that year, and other than that, it has run every year since 1910.
And that's a testament to EVs and electric motors.
Yes,
right
it
there.
is.
It's
Yes,
the
it
original motors in there. I mean, new brushes, of course. These are old brush motors, but just the reliability of electric motors is remarkable.
Yep, very true. They also, in 1910, built a car barn and shop where they work on trolley cars and store them. And it's built of stone and brick and timbers, and we still have that today too. And it's basically unchanged from what it is. I mean, a few minor changes, but basically unchanged from what it was in 1910. It has a belt-driven machine shop that all of it operates off of one motor that drives a long shaft there, and all of the machines have belts that go by pulleys to that shaft and can be engaged or disengaged from it. Pretty simple system, but that was state-of-the-art in 1910 when the building was built. And there's also a forge and a blacksmith shop in there, and a big heavy crane so that we can lift the bodies of the trolley cars and engines off of their wheels to work on them. 1911, they built a powerhouse out of concrete, poured concrete, and I added a electric vehicle charging station later so that when I go over there I can charge my Tesla.
It's on plugs here.
Yes, it is. And this building is also very much original the way it was in 1911 when it was built. These motor generator sets have an AC motor on this end that gets its power from the power company, and it's connected by a shaft to a DC generator which generates 600 volts direct current for the trolleys to run on. And then you saw this picture in Stephen's collection. It has all of the switching equipment that keeps it running. Now we don't actually use these anymore. In 1979, the freight railroad added rectifiers. They're in a box about the size of a refrigerator, which does the work of all of the stuff in this room. But fortunately, all they did was disconnect this equipment and didn't scrap it or anything like that. So we still have all of the original equipment. We even have the manuals for how to operate them. So theoretically, we could start them up again. They built these interurban routes, as I mentioned. Interurban railroads weren't just city railroads. They ran from one town to another and out into the farming districts. The main one that they built was north to the town of Sela. It went through this narrow gap in the hills there, which makes quite an interesting ride because the trolley railroad runs along a cliff on the one side of it, looking straight down at the Yakima River. This is how that same area looks today. And to get to Sela, they had a bridge over the Natchez River, which is called the Pegram Truss Bridge. It's a very rare type of truss. Bridge enthusiasts from all over the world come to see it because there's only 10 of them left in the world, and ours is considered the most complete or the most original. It's unaltered. And here's how it looks today. And by 1922, the first locomotive was not adequate for hauling all of the freight that they were hauling, so they ordered this locomotive from General Electric. It's called a steeple cab locomotive, and it too is still in existence, and we can run it in Yakima on the railroad running down the streets. The streetcars, the old wooden streetcars like you saw in the earlier pictures, were by 1930 people were not wanting to ride them anymore, so the railroad ordered some brand new steel streetcars from the Brill Company called master units, and they were, in 1930, these cars were the cutting edge of streetcar technology, and they had heaters and comfortable seats and lighting and stuff. And this is car number 21 in 1940, and here it is today. So we still have those cars running in Yakima. The inside of the cars, this is a builder's photo when the car was built, how it looked, and then this is how it looks today. So they ran passenger and freight up until 1947, and this was still all owned by the Union Pacific Railroad. In 1947, they stopped running streetcars, and that was the last streetcar operation in the state of Washington. But they continued to run freight because it was still a very lucrative business, and in fact that's what kept the railroad alive for many, many years, while all other interurbans were dying out all over the country, and they had been in every state of the Union. They all were dying out in great numbers after 1930. The YBT Railroad actually survived in freight service until 1985, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. This is 1973. There had been a big squabble about renewing the railroad's franchise starting in 1971, and people didn't like the trains running down the middle of their streets, the freight trains. And so people were petitioning the city council to stop to not renew the franchise for the railroad. And there was a big fight about it that lasted for 2 years, and for about 1.5 years, the railroad ran without a franchise. And then the Interstate Commerce Commission stepped in and said, you can't shut down a common carrier railroad, you have to let them run. So that settled it, but there was a lot of bad feelings at that time because of that. And so I was friends with the people who run these trains. They let me run that locomotive a number of times. And we talked about, here's this historic railroad. This is 1973, this is over 50 years ago. It was very historic then already. And we said, you know, this should be something positive, not negative. So I wrote a letter to the Yakima City Council in 1973 and suggested, why don't you get a couple trolley cars to run on this railroad and turn it into something positive. This man named Ray Brown was a very influential and powerful city councilman in Yakima at that time. And he called me right after they read that letter, and he said, I want to do that. I like the idea. I want to do that. Where can we get trolleys? So we started a search all over the country. Now this is before the internet. My secretary had to type letters to every single trolley museum in America to see if they had a trolley car that we could buy from them. And we got one offer in Connecticut, and I actually flew back there to look at the car, and it was a piece of junk. I took pictures of it to bring back to show Ray, and we had a committee by then. And so that's not going to work. Well, it turns out there was a guy down in Oregon who had a little trolley museum that nobody even really knew about. And my wife and I just discovered it by accident one time when we were driving through Oregon. And so we talked to the guy and we told him what we're trying to do in Yakima. And he said, well, I know where you can get streetcars that look just like the early cars that ran in Yakima. And he had imported a couple from Porto, Portugal to a museum in trolley museum in Pennsylvania. And so he showed us pictures of them. We thought, yep, that looks just like the cars that ran in Yakima. So we got Ray Brown down there to talk to him, and they worked out a deal where the city of Yakima sent this man, his name was Paul Class. They sent Paul Class to the city of Porto, Portugal with letters of introduction from the mayor, asking if we could buy 2 streetcars from them. And they said yes. And so Paul and his wife went there for several weeks to help them. Paul got to pick out the 2 streetcars, the 2 best ones he could find for us to buy, and then they completely refurbished them. And again, like Stephen was saying, there's really not that much to do with an electric motor and an armature that just goes around in a field. That's pretty straightforward stuff. But the car body and stuff like that, they spruced up and everything was repainted and stuff. Paul and his wife helped with the repainting. I didn't move that fast enough, did I? Anyway, that's Paul's wife. When the cars were all ready, this was the final day, they were all finished. Ray Brown had given Paul a camera and a bunch of rolls of film, and he asked him to take pictures of the reconstruction or the refurbishment of these cars and the repainting and stuff, which he did. And then he had about a half a roll of film left, so he and his wife went for a walk in Porto there, and they walked down to the beach. And if you know Paul and his wife, you know that they were what hippies became when they grew up. And so they're a little bit different lifestyle. Anyway, it turns out this beach was a clothing optional beach. And Paul had this camera with these half a roll of film left in it. So his wife went au natural, and he took pictures of her running around on the beach. Well, he forgot to tell Ray Brown about that. And so they sent the rolls of film back, and they were processed, and the processed film came back to the city hall in Yakima, and Ray gathered all his friends around and opened the box. And here were these pictures of Paul's wife on the beach with nothing on. And I wish I could have been there. I wasn't there, unfortunately, but they said Ray Brown's face turned beet red. He was so embarrassed. And there was no harm done. It was funny, we laugh about it now, but he was very embarrassed about that. So the trolleys, the day after Paul and his wife left Portugal, there was a revolution in Portugal, and the new government took over all of the utilities, including the streetcar railroads. And so we had lost contact with all the people we'd been dealing with and we didn't know where our streetcars were, and our money was gone. We had paid for them, and it went this way for about a month, and we thought, well, we really lost everything because we can't talk, there's nobody that'll talk to us. And then one day, Ray got a call from the Port of Houston, Texas. He said, we've got 2 trolley cars on the dock here that say they're for Yakima, Washington. What do you want us to do with them? And what had happened was the streetcar president on the last day before the revolutionary government took over, on the very last day, he got the 2 trolley cars loaded onto any American ship he could find in the port there. Porto is a port. And this happened that this ship was going to Houston instead of Seattle, which is where we had planned to ship them to. And he got them on that ship, and so they ended up in Houston. Well, Union Pacific, as I mentioned, has been our friend, and they were willing to ship the cars from Houston up to Yakima in a train, and they did. And part of the time, the cars were back near the caboose, and the caboose had a armed special agent who was guarding them, just guarding the streetcars so that they wouldn't get vandalized on the way up to Yakima. So this is the morning they arrived in Yakima. This is August 28, 1974. And Ray and I went down, and we knew they were coming, so we went down to look at them. And they were amazing. They were like brand new streetcars out of the factory from, you know, like 1907 or something like that. They were fresh and new, and everything just looked perfect on them. We were really excited with them. And finally, so everything all turned out well that we were worried wouldn't. So the next day they lifted the cars up and they rolled the flat cars out from under them and they set them down on the tracks. And then they did some work on them to make them fit the YBT tracks as best they could. I mean, everything was all standard gauge. It was the correct gauge and stuff, but they perfected some things, fine-tuned some things, I guess you could say. And then on October 12th, Columbus Day of 1974, they had the grand opening and inaugural runs. The man in the center is John Kennefick, who was the president of the Union Pacific Railroad at that time. He flew out from Omaha to Yakima to run the first streetcar. And the reason he had an interest in it was because Ray Brown, who I mentioned had friends in high places, when we first started talking with the people in Yakima on the YBT Railroad about bringing streetcars back, the local officials there were not in favor of it at all. It was just a nuisance to them. So Ray Brown happened to know Governor Dan Evans, and he asked Dan Evans if he would write a letter to the Union Pacific president and ask him if we could run trolley cars in Yakima. And so he did, and President Kennefick wrote back and says, yes, you can do that. So like magic, it trickled down to the lower people there, and all of a sudden the people that were saying, no, you can't, now we're saying, oh, what can we do to help? So it was pretty good. So we were happy to have President Kennefick come and run the first trolley out. And we've been running the trolleys ever since then, which, as Stephen mentions, they're so basic and elementary. They have been running for just a little over 50 years now, and they have not had a major overhaul of any kind. There have been a few things. Last year we had to repair one of the air compressors, but just a few little things like that. But the main motors and everything are still running after 50 years, and it's pretty remarkable. We have, besides public runs that we make on weekends and holidays, we have charters, like people like this come to have gotten married on the trolleys and have their wedding party there. We have a group that is a actors group that we want very much for people to understand when they ride the trolleys that this is a very historic railroad. It's not just a Disneyland ride. You're stepping back in time. You're in a time capsule, so to speak. So these actors get on the trolley somewhere on its route, and they walk through the trolley and talk to the people on the car, and they talk to them like it's 1920 in her case, or 1912 or something. And she carries an old folding camera and things like that. The idea being to get people thinking about how historic it is, because that's truly what makes it exceptional. We get people from all over the country. and all over the world. Every continent that people have come from. These two gentlemen came from Australia just to see the YBT Railroad, and they spent a whole day with us. They spent about $2,000 with us, which we were really excited about, and they had a great time because they didn't have anything like that in Australia. This woman is a popular TV personality in the Yakima Valley. Her name is, oh God, I forgot. Lindsay, you're real popular, right? Lindsay Jensen. It's because she's not in Yakima anymore. She moved to further eastern Washington. But anyway, she came, brought her parents, and rode the trolley to Sela, and then liked it so much that she brought her TV crew down to make a big documentary all about the YBT Railroad. And we've had other ones like that too. You may have seen last year, King 5 News did a story on our railroad, and it was a very nice one too. So we've gotten a little bit of publicity that way. We have volunteers who help us try to spread the word about the trolleys. As I mentioned, there's actually still people in 2025 that think that now you should get rid of this whole railroad. I don't understand them, but that's how people are. So we try to spread the word, and we have some events that that people really like. Christmas especially. This man comes down from the North Pole and rides the trolley, and he is a singing Santa Claus. He sings Christmas carols and gets the kids to sing Christmas carols and gives them candy canes. And for 3 weekends in December he's there, and we make more money on those 3 weeks than we do the entire. Grateful for donations and people who put us in their will and things like that, and we also apply for grants, and we've gotten quite a few grants, over $1 million over the years. But it's all, the problem that the city is having right now, as Stephen was talking about with the 6th Avenue, where they want to, where the road needs to be rebuilt. Money is the problem, so we're trying to help them find more money for that. The other thing that we need is volunteers. You would think that people would just love to run a trolley. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a train engineer, and running a trolley was just a natural for me. I've been doing it for over 50 years. But getting new motormen for our trolleys is actually kind of a challenge. We get them wherever we can, but there's not that many people that are interested in it. So in case any of you, since electric vehicles are of your interest, are interested in becoming a Yakima trolley motorman, I would be happy to teach you how to run a trolley. And it means you have to drive to Yakima, but I go there so often my car doesn't even, I don't have to put my hands on the steering wheel, it just knows how to get there without anything. Anyway.
Also, the trolleys have regenerative braking, so they're primitive old controllers.
Yes.
They have a few power levels to go faster, and there's also a few regen levels. It's neat, all these things have carried over from old electric vehicles to new.
Right. I think nobody before, I mean, other than people who ran trolleys, even knew about regenerative braking until the modern electric vehicles came along, but this has been going on for many, many decades. Quite interesting. So we need volunteers, as I say, we need motormen to run the trolleys, but in case somebody would like to volunteer with something a little closer than Yakima, this is in Snoqualmie at the Railroad Museum. And we have a car that we got a grant for, $300,000 about 3.5 years ago. And we are completely refurbishing it. I should say the crew at Snoqualmie is completely refurbishing it. And when it's done, it's going to look exactly like the very first trolley cars in Yakima. The other two that we run are just kind of close replicas, but this is going to be an exact replica in every way, so it'll give people the exact feeling of public transit in Yakima in 1908. And this is something that started off quite fast, and then because of the economy of the times, the Railroad Museum in Snoqualmie went from 7 paid staff people on their restoration staff to 2 paid staff people. And so it has slowed way down. And so this is some place where I think we could use volunteers if anybody is interested in helping trolleys get refurbished to look the way they used to. It can be people who are good with carpentry. It can be people who are good with electric things. There's a lot of different parts that can be done. This, we have already gotten the electric, these are the controllers, or inner parts of the controllers we've had rebuilt by a shop in California. This is the air compressor that we rebuilt last year. This is the frame, obviously before they sandblasted it. And this is how the trolley will look when it's all done. This is a picture of one of the original trolleys when it was still at the builder, brand new. And this is what our goal is, to have the exact same thing again, running in downtown Yakima, down the middle of the street. Oh, this is not in the right order. This is a motor from that car. This is before, the motor has also been rebuilt by a shop here in Seattle, and the wheels have been rebuilt with new flanges and new tires.
Yeah, big electric motor and a gearbox. I don't like to test the drive unit only without the motor controller there, because the trolleys, instead of a battery, of course, have 600 volt DC. It comes in, and being so primitive, the motor controllers are like something Dave Cloud would have built years ago, literally, where it just adds more copper in to increase, and then on the roof of the old trolleys there's resistors, so to modulate the 600 volts without fancy new power electronics, they just waste some of the energy into the resistors if you don't need the trolley to go that fast, or let more of the 600 volts go right to the motor if you need it to go faster. It's very, very simple.
And Stephen's been running trolleys since he was a little boy too. We've been over there many times. One nice thing on the horizon is National Historic Landmark. I have been working on this for 4 years. And they told me when I started that it takes about 5 years, and I laughed at them. I said, no way. Yeah, I'm 4 years into it, and there's about a year left. But the National Historic Landmark is a very high designation for a historic property. In the hierarchy of the National Park Service, it's just below a national park and national monument. And the National Park Service gives assistance to National Historic Landmarks, and there are grants that we have that you have preference for if you're a National Historic Landmark. There's only 2 other National Historic Landmarks in Eastern Washington, and both of them are most of the time not accessible. So when we become one, hopefully within the next 12 months, this will be the first one that's accessible and the only one in an urban area. It'll be right in downtown Yakima and Tucson where we run. So that's the good news. And then there's this story about 6th Avenue that Stephen was alluding to, that they don't, when they started talking about restoring 6th Avenue, they had enough money to rebuild the road and the trolley track. Now they say they don't have enough money to rebuild the trolley track. And so they gave this, big event to present different options for it. And people were allowed to vote on, at that time, and also follow up on a survey that the city gave. This was not us, this was the city doing it. And 92% of the people responding to the survey said they wanted to keep the trolleys. Only 8 said they wanted to get rid of it. So we know that we have a lot of support from the public. It's the city council who makes the final decision, and they are pretty ruthless about, or 1 or 2 of them anyway, pretty ruthless about what they do, what they want to do for any spending of any money. And so they're not so sure whether they want to keep the trolley going. And obviously, if they don't rebuild the trolley track in 6th Avenue, 6th Avenue is our route to Sela. And if they don't rebuild it, then that ends our existence as an interurban. So we can't be a National Historic Landmark, and everything all falls apart. So we keep lobbying them. I've been over there talking to each and every city councilman, trying to get them on our side. We have some that are, and 1 or 2 that aren't. But that's where we stand at that now. And as Stephen mentioned, there's going to be another public hearing on August 4th. That's what they say now, and you should watch our Facebook page, Yakima Valley Trolleys. We keep the most up-to-date information there. The city has postponed this a couple of times, so they're kind of dragging their feet. But supposedly August 4th, they're going to make a final decision on whether we survive or whether we become real history. So if you want to, just from home, support the trolleys, you can go to www.savethetrolleys.com, and the Trolley Association has a petition, and we've gotten a lot more signatures already than the original city survey did from people who want to save the trolleys. And anyone can do this with their computer, and I think people who are not in Yakima are almost they'd rather hear from, because they want to know, or they need to know, that people come from other places than Yakima to see the trolleys. When we do surveys on our passengers, interestingly, almost every time we've done it, about 51% of our riders have been outside of Yakima. So the city needs to know that, and we tell them that. But anyway, if they hear from people out of town, that would be a good thing, I think. So that's what's going on with the trolley railroad, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer any. Yes, sir.
Do cars run, like down there in Seattle, they run actually over the tracks in that lane?
Yes, they do.
So
yes,
when they clear the road, they got to take off the tracks?
Yep, and that's where a lot of the expense is, exactly.
And what's the difference in price if they just tore them out?
$7 million if they don't, and that's not counting the cost of ripping them out, but the cost of just paving the road over is $7 million. $13.5 million is what they say for rebuilding the trolley track. Now,
And the road, like total, right? It's
yeah, total,
13 million
right.
total. If they don't do it, the trolley portion was 5 to 7 million extra.
And does that include the bridge? I remember the 7 million.
The bridge is not part of that project. The project is just 6th Avenue, which is 1.5 miles long. It's before you get to the bridge. I lost my train of thought. I was going to tell you something there. Dang. This is what happens when you get old.
It's okay, my brain's old. I didn't hear your thoughts.
Yeah. I know what I was going to say. The last time the track was rebuilt in 6th Avenue was 1956. That's when Elvis was king and Eisenhower was president, and it was a whole different world then. It's been 70 years. So I try to tell them also that, look, yes, this is going to be expensive, but it's a one-time deal. Everybody who's alive today that's working on this will not even be alive the next time it needs to be rebuilt. But, you know, they're kind of short-sighted sometimes.
Any other questions? And then we got to wrap up the meeting and make an exciting announcement for next month's meeting.
Okay.
Yes,
Jay.
Sorry, I wanted to hijack it for a moment.
Okay.
A piece that I left out was lots of writing on the 1904 trolley system in Hong Kong, which my wife's childhood department overlooks. And these are narrow gauge double-decker streetcars. So the one time in the past 20 years that one of them did get in an accident and flipped over, 77 people were injured. But they have got wooden framed, wood slat benches still in operation, and modern cars with AC drives have been added, so the regenerative braking is much smoother. And they cost 42 cents per ride, and you can go 30 kilometers or 19 miles and pass 120 stops along the way. It's really viable, but you can barely fit 2 people kneecap to kneecap facing each other in those narrow gauge cars.
I mean, I want to just add something that reminded me of something. If any of you went to Expo 86 in Canada back in 1986, they had one of those Hong Kong cars. It was an earlier version, I guess. The Hong Kong car was a double-decker there on display, and it had been built in America because I recognized the exact same kind of undercarriage truck that our cars ride on. It was on too. It came from the Brill factory, Brill was to trolleys like Boeing was to airliners. It was the biggest company that ever made them. But I remember that was from Hong Kong.
And everybody there calls it the ding ding.
Yeah.
That's not like the ding ding.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, thanks a lot, Dad.
Sure.
And yeah, August 4th, we'll send something out to the SEVA email list then for August 4th, and maybe we can get a little caravan to go over there again. Also, if you want, you can Zoom meeting in. We had a number of people do that, and that works at the City Council, but they take public, but 2 minutes, public comments for 2 minutes, and I think it could really help. Like I say, it's sad that the trolleys have survived this long. It's like a time capsule that was never buried, and it's all original. It's just amazing. And now, if that line gets paved over, then the bridge and stuff doesn't matter because it's in between that. When I was little, the trolleys ran over 20 miles out to other cities and stuff, and I've seen it get cut back and cut back. Now it's down to about 5 miles or so, but it still goes between Yakima and Selah, and that's at risk now. Anyway, we've been having trying to think where we're going to have our meetings and stuff, and having them in the parking garage here in the summer with the car show vibe where we can have our EVs all around. And another thing I've enjoyed is our December holiday party that we have, and I thought it'd be cool if we have sort of a car show and summer potluck party as well. So for next month's meeting, we're going to have it at the Coffee Museum in Ballard, where we had a big EV show last year or the year before. Much thanks to Kent for offering to host that for us. So we'll get that out on the SEVA website. And if you're not on the SEVA email list or the SEVA website, we'll be showing where we're having our meetings. And then as the weather turns cooler, we'll select a place where we can have our meeting indoors for the cooler months. But for next month's meeting, we'll have a potluck. We'll get some more details on what stuff people can bring, and have some tables and chairs I'll bring out and everything. And bring your EV, please. And Kent's got a lot of really cool, unique EVs if you haven't been there before, to the Coffee Museum, and it's just over in Ballard, so close by. Let me just give out the address now for the SEVA meeting minutes and stuff as well.
Is that August 12th?
Is it? And yes, it'll be August 12th is our August SEVA meeting. Is that on 4600 Shoal Avenue or 4303 Memorial Way?
4600, but that's the coffee.
Okay.
We have the event in another building, so it depends on which one you want people to go to.
I guess the other building we had it at before.
I want to know how young you were when your dad took you to the trolley thing.
Yeah, I wonder. The first time. I mean, I was born in '82. Okay, 4451 14th Avenue Northwest, Seattle, Washington, 98107. And we'll put this out on our email list and on the website. Brian, you can put it up for, and you can visit our website at www.seattleeva.org and bring some food, bring your EV, bring your spouse or friends, and we'll have a outdoor August fun meeting over in Ballard.
Can I
Thanks,
answer her
everybody.
question?
What's that?
Can I answer her question?
Yes. One.
I have a
question.
picture of Stephen
Oh, yeah.
as a babe in arms in my wife's arms, literally riding the trolley through Selah.
And my brother is the treasurer now of the YVT. He's been more involved in the last years than I have. But yeah, any volunteers too to help. Something I've been wanting to figure out, and sometime maybe we can go over and look at, is figure out how the trolleys are wired. They're pretty simple, but some of the trolleys we don't have a wiring diagram for. And then they use Andersons on, it's kind of interesting to get it in and out of the trolley barn. You know, of course, the wire can't go through the door. And so we have an extension cord to go, and it uses Anderson connectors that a lot of you would be familiar with.
Okay. Sorry, one last announcement I forgot. Encourage y'all to go to Electrify Expo.
Oh, yeah.
This weekend, you know, we've had a love-hate relationship since they've refused to give SIVA a free booth over the years. But I did get an invitation to speak this time, and I'll be on the EV Reality Check stage at 12:30 Saturday. So come one, come all.
And I just signed up for the Ford event over there, which supposedly gives you rights to come to the event over here. So
Yeah.
Cool.
gotta do that on. A little hard to find.
And I'll go check the Ford event out. Hopefully,
Yeah, free breakfast at the Ford event. So
I'll try to bring the Fraud Lightning 98 Ford Ranger.
yeah, that'd be nice. Oh, and in the evening next Saturday is Stance Wars in Bellevue, which is a much younger crowd, import cars. So Charlie and I, for the first time, are going to take what I believe will be the first EV that's ever been at Stance Wars. We're going to take this BMW Z3, which we prettied up, and we'll see what it does. All right, see you August 12th over in Ballard.